Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I have an article that features the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Mr. Boris Johnson, and he makes some statements that I think are extraordinary. Now it remains to be seen if those statements are actually factual or not, or is just in his imagination. So let's see what's going on here. So we have this article from The Telegraph, and it is from the 30th of January 2023, and it's because over there it's already the 30th. Boris Johnson says Vladimir Putin threatened to kill him with a missile. All right, let's see why and what evidence he provides, right, Boris Johnson, and why didn't that happen? Former Prime Minister tells documentary how a comment was made after he warned the Russian president about Ukraine invasion sanctions. All right. Boris Johnson has said Vladimir Putin threatened to kill him with a, and I'm quoting, missile, and added it would only take a minute, end quote. Following his visit to Kiev in early February last year, Mr. Johnson said he had a very, and I'm quoting, very long, most extraordinary call with Russian president, end quote. After the then Prime Minister described the likely sanctions response to a Russian invasion of Ukraine, Putin replied, according to Johnson, and I'm quoting, Boris, I don't want to hurt you, but with a missile it would only take a minute, end quote, Mr. Johnson recalled. The revelations came in a new three-part documentary series titled Putin versus the West, which is to be shown on BBC Two and BBC iPlayer. So this is the little documentary, and he said, Mr. Johnson says he warned Putin there would be much tougher Western sanctions if he invaded Ukraine. And he said Russian aggression would only lead to the West intensifying its support for Ukraine, leading to, and I'm quoting, more NATO, not less NATO, on Russian borders. And I'm quoting, he said, Boris, you say that Ukraine is not going to join NATO anytime soon. What is anytime soon? And I said, and I'm quoting Boris Johnson now, well, it's not going to join NATO for the foreseeable future. You know, that's perfectly well, end quote, Mr. Johnson said of the crucial phone call with Putin. So he didn't give Putin a time. He said, well, foreseeable future. What is that? What does that mean? Anytime soon. What does that mean? And when things change, you just say, well, things change. Now they are part of NATO. And and I'm quoting Johnson again. He sort of threatened me at one point, and I said, and I'm quoting, Boris, I don't want to hurt you, but with a missile, it would only take a minute, end quote, or something like that. Well, Boris, it doesn't work that way, because that is, he sort of threatened me. I think that's a clear threat, the way you said it. So why would you say he sort of threatened me? And why do you say, well, he definitely threatened me? And I'm quoting, I think from the very relaxed tone that he was talking, the sort of air of detachment that he seemed to have, he was just playing along with my attempts to get him to negotiate, Mr. Johnson said. Now, I do not know the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson, personally, and I didn't follow his political career. I don't know what kind of person he is. I can tell you how he looks to me, but that is not a way to look at some people and say, okay, that is how this person is. But nevertheless, sometimes that could be an indicator of the person's, organization, self-respect, self-discipline. It could be an indicator, but I will not go to that. I do not know if he is a liar or not. After all, he's a politician, so I guess you know what I mean. My British friends definitely know more about their former prime minister than I do, because as I said, I was not interested in this guy. For me, it was a kind of a guy who his appearance made me, you know, be more disappointed in the so-called leaders that the Western world has. Really, I mean, showing like he showed, you can say, well, it's a style, but that's his thing. I don't know, but anyway, forget about it. So I don't know if he's a liar or not. I don't know if he lied or not. But you know, if we want to be just, we would ask the other side and say what the other side had to say about that threat, or whatever Johnson said. You know, he sort of threatened me. I would like to ask Putin, or I don't know if BBC went and asked Putin, hey, Putin, did you threaten him? And Putin, I'm assuming, would say no, unless he say, you know, the other option, which is, I don't remember, or no, I wouldn't say that, or yes, I did. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think we'll ever see, actually, because nobody will gonna go and ask Putin what happened. The other thing is, obviously, there are, you know, every phone call that is conducted between, you know, a prime minister and a president, that's transcribed, and you have an evidence, a record of it. You have an audio record, you have a written record, and you have many people present with you on the line. It's not just you and the other one. It's always more than one. It's maybe 10 that you know of. There are some other ones that are already there, like, I don't know, other services from other countries. It's always like this. That's why if you, some people just like to meet in person, and even then they have the translators, and sometimes you have everything bugged around you. That's why when Trump met Putin, I can't remember where, was it in Norway or something? He kicked everybody else. They kicked everybody else for about 2 hours. Melania was a little bit over there, and then she was kicked out. And then it was just Putin, Trump, and a translator, and the microphones, if you know what I mean. Nevertheless, it was a big hullabaloo. How the president was allowed to speak with the other president, and, you know, just like that. So I don't know what happened. Now, the question is, Putin said it was about the sanctions, right? So Boris Johnson, the prime minister then, was telling the president of Russia, hey, if you do that, we will impose more sanctions and more NATO. And then, according to Boris Johnson, then he threatened Boris Johnson by saying, well, oh, I don't want to hurt you. So that means don't impose sanctions, because that would push me into hurting you. Well, Boris Johnson and Great Britain and the European Union impose sanctions. So nothing happened. Why is that, I would like to know. I mean, first, was Putin just joking? Okay, if it's just joking, let's put it aside. Why is he saying that? Why is he mentioning that? It was just a joke. The other one, Putin tried to do it, or Russia. I never heard of Russia trying to do it. The third one, did Russia try and was unsuccessful? Never heard of that. Do you think that Russia would have been unsuccessful in such an endeavor? I don't know. It's just this guy says it, and BBC put it in a documentary. Do you think that's fair, if we are about to analyze it? I don't believe anything what this guy says before, you know, asking at least the other side and see what the other side has to say. But nevertheless, this little BBC documentary is not meant to inform people, obviously. It's meant for a certain kind of idea and a spread of certain kind of how should I put it, image of certain people, certain countries, certain ideologies, and so on. We know that. The fact that this guy, Boris Johnson, was threatened, sort of threatened, that's how he said, he sort of threatened me. I would take that as a threat, but anyway. And he still did it. Boris Johnson still did it against the threat. What would that tell you? Isn't he a courageous man? I think Boris Johnson looks very courageous, and I think he is very courageous. He acts very courageously. So yeah, that I think Boris Johnson, I think, wanted to tell us by inserting that little thing in the documentary, or at least reporting it to the BBC, and BBC putting it gladly in the documentary without evidence, only one side of the story expressed. So he's a very courageous person. Anyway, I don't know Boris Johnson, but I thought that it was interesting that he would say such a thing without any, basically just his word. And as I said, I don't know about Boris Johnson, but I'm pretty sure my British friends know him very well, and they can tell me if they really believe this guy and if they think this guy is a very courageous guy. And nevertheless, even that would not prove that such a threat occurred. Is it impossible? No, no. If you remember Sarkozy, the president of France, the one before Macron, supposedly when he met Putin at one point, again, he was talked to very directly by Putin. I think it's still on YouTube, that little video when Sarkozy comes out after a meeting with Putin. It was not just France, Russia, it was in a context, I can't remember. And they just met on the sideline of this summit. I can't remember. G8 or whatever it was then, or G20, I can't remember. Anyway, Sarkozy comes in front of the camera, in front of the microphone, and he can't find his freaking words for about the whole speech that he gave over there. He was like in shock. And then there's a video that you can find on YouTube with the translator, French translator that was in the room with Putin and Sarkozy. And according to the translator, Putin told Sarkozy something of the same, on the same par, like, hey, I can make you a big president, or I can make you a small president, something like that. And supposedly Putin threatened Macron to destroy him and his country if they keep talking tough. And Macron had a shock or something. Not Macron, I'm sorry, Sarkozy. And then some people said no, because you can find it, I think, under a title in YouTube, is Sarkozy drunk or drunk Sarkozy? That was right after the meeting. Watch that, and then you might go from there. You can find the translator's story when he says, actually, this is what happened. Now, again, it's the translator's word. I don't know Sarkozy's side of the story. I don't know Putin's or Putin's translator's side of the story. But this is how the story goes. Is that something that could occur? Yeah, it could occur. Yeah, I have no doubt that could occur. It's a possibility. Now, is it a probability? I would give it 50%. Possibility, 100% could happen. But as I said, in a quarrel, you always ask at least the two parts involved in that, and then you put in a documentary like that. You just put it as a sensational, whatever Boris Johnson said, and makes me make a video to tell you that this is very low blow. That's not that kind of blow, but that kind of blow. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.